Carlos Ramirez, owner of NBS Audio in Roselle, New Jersey. Danny brought us his bike up from Florida. The bike looks good, sounds good, it's got some audio installed in it. He just knows that he can get more out of it. And there's a couple of things about the previous install he wasn't happy about. They cracked one of his 10-inch mid-bass rings and they wouldn't replace it. Just small little stuff, but overall he just knew he can get more sound out of the bike. So that's what he brought it up for. It's what we're gonna do for him. This is a video of how it sounds now, and then I'll do a video of how it sounds after we're done with our upgrades. The install's pretty good. It's just he knows he can get more out of it. He's running all Beyma equipment, and he just doesn't feel like he's getting the Beyma sound or output. Check it out. Bike's tuned pretty good. The volume goes all the way up with no distortion. Just lacks some output.
Regulators. You regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good, too. But you can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators! Mount up! It was a clear black night, a clear white moon. Warren G was on the streets, trying to consume some skirts for the eve, so I could get some phones rolling in my eye, chilling all alone.
Just hit the east side of the LBC on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G. Seen a car full of girls, ain't no need to tweak. All of you search know what's up with 213. So I hooked some.
Bike sounds really good, but honestly, we can get that output with 8s. These are 10s. So if we're gonna give up all our saddlebag space for 10s, we're gonna make sure that they play loud. Then this is the side that has the cracked saddlebag ring. See right there, which cracked at the top. It's because they ran through the bolt through the thinnest part of the ring. So we're gonna switch the rings out and do a set of Nagy rings. The reason this happened is because the woofer is straight up and down. If they had rotated the woofer 45 degrees, the bolt would have ended up in the thick part of the ring instead of the thin part of the ring right there, and it wouldn't have cracked. And they should have pre-drilled it. If they pre-drilled it, it wouldn't have cracked. Another thing we would never do is amplifier in the saddlebag. They did a clean job of installing it, but these amps fit in the fairing. There is no need to have an amp in the saddlebag like that. Okay, now that we have it taken apart, we understand why we're not getting the output that we thought we should get. It's running two 800.4s, my favorite amp, everybody knows that. But these are 8 ohm drivers. So even with the amplifier bridged, the fairing speakers would only see 200 watts each. They're not bridged. Everything is ran in stereo. So this amplifier does 135 by 4 into a 4 ohm load. Into an 8 ohm load, you're getting half of that. So you're getting 60 to 80 watts per speaker because it's ran in stereo. This would work if they were 4 ohm speakers, but with 8 ohm speakers, it's not gonna work. So lid speakers are 8 ohms, speaker in the lower 8 ohms. So we're gonna take out one of the 800.4s. We're gonna go with a 1600.1, and then the 1600.1 on the 10s isn't pushing them to their max. So we're actually gonna move that 1600 to the fairing. We're gonna add a 3000.1 in the tour pack to power the 10s. And the 1600 wasn't doing all the power it could because they're running it with 8 gauge wire. So this is the power and ground running the amplifier. Might even be 10 gauge. I'm gonna pull it off and then show you. So that's coming out. More powerful amp with thicker cable is going in the tour pack. And then we're gonna feed some real power to these Beyma components. And this will give us, it's not a wiring rescue. The wiring is clean and it's all oxygen-free copper. But see, 10 gauge, it's actually 12 gauge. So if you look here, you'll see it's 12 gauge wire running the 800.4. We wouldn't do that, we would do 8 gauge. And the same thing on this side. So guess what, Chris? I was wrong. We're gonna have to upgrade the power wire to the fairing too.
Yeah, I know.
And this is exactly why we hate doing amplifiers in the saddlebag. So now Chris has to use a set of cutters to cut the wire ties to take the saddlebag off. So as you can see, it's a 2-person operation if you don't want to scratch the saddlebag. And then since the amps are going in the saddlebag, you end up using thinner wire to make it more manageable. So there's 8 gauge wires running a 1600, and then had to use Y jacks, remote wire, and then quick disconnect. So now this is a quick disconnect with some 16 gauge wires feeding a 10-inch mid-bass driver that's supposed to be getting 800 watts. You're not getting 800 watts through that thin wire, and the reason they did it is because the amp's in the saddlebag and it's got to be quick disconnect. We would have, if we had to do this, if this was a Road King, we would use XT60s or XT90s, which can handle 4 times the amount of current of these connectors. But once you move the amp to the tour pack, you don't have to worry about any of that. We're gonna fix it. Eight gauge wire to a 1600 watt amp that takes 4 gauge wire. Okay, so we have fuse, and fuse. So 3 different types of fuse holders, which I don't understand considering 2 amps in the front are the same. So one of them gets a mini fuse and one gets a maxi fuse. So 30 amp fuse, 100 amp fuse for the 1600, and 60 amp fuse. So one of the 800s has the proper fuse, one doesn't. But we're gonna do a fuse holder on the side, a 0 gauge run down, and then split it from there. We're gonna clean all this up. We're gonna have to upgrade this battery. This battery is only 400 cranking amps. The stock battery actually has more cranking amps than this battery, but it is half the size of the factory battery. It's a 15 amp hour. We're gonna go with a 30 amp hour. So it was obvious that the bike was worked on by 2 different shops, but the second shop should have removed the first T-harness, since the amps are using RCAs now, and the high level plugs. That was just pure laziness leaving that one in there when you only need this one. So it's gonna make a lot more room in the fairing once we remove the first T-harness and just leave the one that comes with the Soundstream radio that was installed afterwards. Then you could tell they did not pre-plan their install, because here we have a red, a purple, and a black. Then it comes down here and it's, oops, forgot I didn't need that. Loop the purple back through the red, feed it back up, then loop it down here, then jump it to the blue, then bring it back. And look at that, there's new blue wire in the plug. So if they had properly mapped it out, it would have been yellow, blue, black, or yellow, blue, black, or it would have been in yellow, red, black, and then black, yellow, and then the remote. So we're gonna remove the T-taps, and we're actually gonna solder into the harness to make a nice clean connection. And they did it on the wrong side too. Putting it on that side doesn't protect it with the fuse. They should have put it on this side, but it's okay. So you could tell that it was an afterthought, because you have 1 wire, jumped into 3 wires, jumped into a 4th wire, and then ran up. But we're gonna fix it. Okay, the bike is done now and it's tuned. We moved the 1600.1 into the fairing. We put a 3000.1 on the 10-inch mid-bass drivers. We kept all the speakers the same. We have way more output now, especially considering that we did a larger lithium battery. The lithium battery was in there, was too small. We did a Braille G30H, which is literally double the capacity. Sounds like a completely different bike. Bike's got a lot more output and way more bass. So we took the amp out of the saddlebag. Now the amp's in the tour pack. Takes up no space in the tour pack. And now that you can easily remove the saddlebags, take them on and off, because there's only speaker wire connections in saddlebags. You don't have the giant power wires for the amps. So check it out.
Regulators. We regulate any stealing of his property. We're damn good too. But you can't be any geek off the street. Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
Regulators! Mount up! It was a clear black night, a clear white moon. Warren G was on the streets trying to consume some skirts for the E, so I could get some phones, rolling in my ride, chilling all alone.
Just hit the east side of the LBC on a mission trying to find Mr. Warren G. Seen a car full of girls, ain't no need to tweak. All of you search know what's up with 213.
So I hooked a left on 21 and Lewis. Some brothers shooting dice, so I said, let's do this. I jumped off the rock and said, what's up? Some brothers want some man, so I said, I'm stuck.
These girls peeping me, I'm gonna glide and swerve. These looking so hard, they straight hit the curve. Want to think of better things than some horny tricks. I see my homie and some suckers all in his mix.
I'm getting jacked, I'm breaking myself. I can't believe it. They taking more than 12. They took my rings, they took my Rolex. I looked at the brother, said, damn, what's next?
They got my homie hemmed up and they all around. Can't none of them see him if they going straight down for pound. They wanna come up real quick before they start to clown. I best pull out my strap and lay them busters down.
They got guns to my head, I think I'm going down. I can't believe it's happening in my hometown. If I had wings, I would fly. Let me contemplate. I glance in the cut and I see my homie Nate.
16 in the clip and 1 in the hole. Nate Dogg is about to make some bodies turn cold. Now they dropping and yelling.
Sally Walker walking down the street. She didn't know what to do, so she jumped in front of me. Little Sally Walker walking down the street. She didn't know what to do, so she jumped in front of me. I said, go on, girl, do your thing, do your thing, do your thing. Go on, girl, do your thing, do your thing. Stop, go on, girl, do your thing, do your thing, do your thing. Go on, girl, do your thing, do your thing. Drop, go. Little Sally.
As you can see, the bike's a lot louder now. We have a lot more bass. Let me run through a couple different tracks. This bike sounds really good.
There was a time when I didn't have no one, didn't have no love. Do that we once had? Well, if I had the chance to love you again, I would make your heart forget I was ever there. If we forget the past, I know this time if I had the chance to hold you again, I would fill your heart with joy, make you remember I'm the only one for you.
come on, girl, what you playing for? Come on, let me kiss that. Ooh, I know you missed that. What's wrong? Let me fix that. Twist that, baby. Tonight's the night I let you know. Baby, tonight's the night we lose control. Baby, tonight you need that. Tonight, believe.
She miserable, says she's stressed, so me give her some sex. I just loving, them a request, them here say we have the best. That's why y'all stay out my home and I blow up my phone, cause she want the vitamin S. Y'all want smoke my cigar and I run down my car, cause she want the vitamin S. Y'all a unbutton her skirt and a pop off my shirt, cause she want the vitamin S. Y'all not take no less.
Auntie not the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie in the ghetto, in a the ghetto.
Esto se jodió, la vecina no sé qué bebió, el vecino no sé qué prendió, a la gente no sé qué le dio, pero todo el mundo está loco, todo el mundo está loco, todo el mundo rayado en el coco, y yo solo sé que montaron.
Auntie not the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie in the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie not the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie in the ghetto, in a the ghetto.
En el ghetto hay party, todo el mundo everybody, estamos flow Rastafari, está perfecto ese body, mami tú estás bien salvaje y yo que estoy de safari, DJ no le baje, póngala de Tego y de Dani. Ese culo es de quilate, se te notan los pilates, o tú ganas o yo gano, no lo dejamos en empate, en mi casa se remate, no fuimos low key, callados sin los detalles, la gente ya se dio cuenta que montamos la disco en la calle, ya esto es.
Auntie not the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie in the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie not the ghetto, in a the ghetto, auntie in the ghetto, in a the ghetto.
Everybody wanna sound around me. I'ma show you how. Come on, all it together now. Yeah, oh yeah. That's how it gotta be. So stop trying to be loud as me, 'cause you can't.
That's it. She's done. She's on her way home on Wednesday. I hope I made the trip worth it for Danny. He took some time off, spent a week up here in New Jersey with his family. He actually trailered the bike up. Now he's trailing her back home. We went over every detail. The bike was put together really good. It's just certain things that we felt we could do a little bit better, and we did. Then no more amps in the saddlebag. Amps in the tour pack taking less than 10% of the tour pack space. We doubled up the power on the bass. We doubled up the power on the mids, and we kept all the speakers he had. We didn't switch the speakers. We didn't switch the mid bass drivers. Kept the DSP. Just we did everything our way, and he's happy with the way it turned out. I think the bike turned out pretty good. It's solid, looks good, sounds good. The part that bothered me the most was the amp inside the saddlebag. We try to never install amps in the saddlebags unless it's a Road King. The bike's got a tour pack on it. That's where the amp should go. What people don't realize is in the saddlebag, the way the saddlebags are designed, they sit on the rail and then there's just two bolts that hold it. So as you hit bumps, there's nothing to keep the saddlebag bottom from moving around and jarring the amp around. And these sound digital amps are sensitive. They don't like being bounced around a lot. Then on top of that, they used power wire that was too thin to make it easier to take the saddlebags on and off. I understand, but it's not what's best for the amp. And I felt this is just a better way to do it. So, till the next one.